Hello and welcome everyone to another Sales Hacker webinar. This will be the second webinar ever that is live from Costa Rica. So if you hear some Spanish in the background, I'm actually in a little co-working spot by the beach, which is pretty awesome, but also I think meetings down here are louder than maybe in North America. So if you hear that, that's what it is, but I'll try and put myself on mute when I'm not talking. But very excited for this topic. So it's an important one, and one that I don't think gets discussed enough. And it's this idea of sales coaching and where excellent sales teams come from, because they don't just pop up overnight. You can't just hire the right folks. You can't just have the right process. You need ongoing coaching, or you're going to get stale and your results are going to be stagnant. So before I quickly introduce my awesome guests, I've got two amazing folks here to talk through this with me. Really quickly, some housekeeping items. So if you've ever been on a Sales Hacker webinar before, you know that we do these for the community. You know, we're setting aside time to have this discussion, but it's for you. So if you have any burning questions, if you want to know why you're not getting coaching at your org, if you're a manager and you want to know, what's best practice around how much coaching you should do, jump on the Q&A. We always love to hear from you guys. Put your name, your title, where you're from, and your question would be great. Number two, these are all recorded. So every single time we do these, I get 5 or 6 emails after saying, Scott, where's this recording? It takes about 24 hours to actually get to you, but I promise it is coming. But we got that out of the way. So I wanted to introduce my two guests. I am joined by Justin Welsh and Artie Davis. Justin, Artie, welcome to the community.
Thank you. Excited.
Great to be here, man. Awesome.
To have you. And as always, I like to, just provide a little bit more color for the listeners. And Justin Welsh, this man doesn't really need an introduction in my eyes. If you've ever clicked open LinkedIn, you've probably heard of this guy or seen some of his posts. But Justin Welsh is an entrepreneur and advisor to high-growth SaaS companies. His previous work experiences includes serving as the SVP of sales for LA's based PatientPop, where he grew the business from 0 to 55 million ARR in less than 5 years. So unbelievably impressive. And during your tenure there, PatientPop was named Entrepreneur's 16th most entrepreneurial company of 2018, which I imagine you had a big part of. One of Silicon Review's 50 fastest growing companies, and built in LA's number 2 out of 100 best places to work. And before that, Justin was the 10th hire and spent 5 years in various revenue leadership roles at ZocDoc, another great success story. And if you want to learn more about Justin after we finish up, connect with him on LinkedIn and go to www.theofficialjustin.com. How did you get that domain, man?
I actually did what I always do, which is I steal other people's good ideas. And I saw Gaetano Donardi had the official Gaetano, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And I always have to say Justin, D as in David, Welsh with an S.com, and that was really challenging. So I switched from Justin D. Welsh over to the official Justin. Rolls off the tongue a little more.
I love it. I'm shocked that someone didn't have that already. But that's good that you. Yeah, you did. You definitely got lucky, and I love that you stole it from someone else. What's that often misquoted quote? Great artist, good artist copy, great artist steal. Some people attribute it to like Pablo Picasso. Some people say Steve Jobs. I don't think anyone actually knows.
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln, yeah. It's a good quote, though. And moving over, we've got my guy, Artie Davis. So Artie is a sales rep turned manager turned enablement and marketing leader. So you've got this wide swath of experience, which is really interesting. Right now, you're the senior manager of brand marketing at PebblePost, and you oversee marketing for PebblePost for all their brand and all enablement, which is really cool. And you are employee number 14, so you've seen this thing grow. And you've worn almost every hat at the company, which I think is really cool when you can see it from all the angles. And as the company scaled and the team was built out, Artie kind of saw this opportunity to build a world-class enablement program to onboard employees and foster continued knowledge consumption, something that is so important and not enough organizations pay attention to. And he built an on-demand system with the help of Showpad Coach, which he titled PebblePost Academy. And you also run these quarterly wide learning events and games. Dive into those a little bit for me. What are these company-wide learning events and games? Are we talking like we're scaling rope ladders together? What are we doing?
Not quite, but it's a lot of fun. So every quarter we get together as a company because I obviously a heavy focus on sales enablement, but I do oversee enablement company-wide as well. So everywhere from like any department here. So we all get together on a quarterly basis. The entire company sits down and we all get on an app and we play a company-wide trivia game. And there's a trophy that's given at the end to the winner who has to keep that on their desk for the quarter. And it's kind of this oversized dolphin, big trophy that they have to kind of keep at their desk. And it's great because we kind of cover the main learning topics of the prior quarter. And it kind of informs us and, you know, the management team as well on where we need to focus and where the gaps are. So it's a lot of fun to get the whole company together to do something like that. And, you know, it's just kind of a representation of us being very culturally training infused company.
I love that. Anytime you get kind of cross-pollination between departments, I think is so important. And the learning that can happen, even if it's something like a simple game or activity that you're doing together, can be pretty profound and lead to some really cool advantages in your role.
And a cultural impact as well, which is really cool too.
No doubt. All right, so let's dive into it. And so everyone listening, it's basically going to be kind of a roundtable discussion followed by a Q&A. And first, you know, when we were prepping for this, there was this interesting kind of divide that happened. And I think a lot of people use coaching and training interchangeably. And I think that confuses people a lot. So I would love it, Justin, if you could start by defining coaching.
Yeah, to me, coaching is the advancement of fundamental skills. So, you know, I think when we were thinking about what is training and what is coaching, to me, it's sort of like, you know, an NBA skills camp or a basketball skills camp, right? Where everyone goes to fundamentals camp and they learn how to dribble, how to pass, how to run a few plays, how to shoot free throws, how to do all that stuff, play defense. And to me, that's like training, right? So coaching to me is in the moment, it's ad hoc, it is situational, and it is often sort of going up a level and taking it to the next step in terms of being personalized, being individualized. I think to me that's coaching. So that's usually the definition I use. And of course it entails many other things, but that's like a good core definition for me. Yeah.
I like that. Now, I was hoping you were going to use that analogy because I think it does a great job at framing this conversation out. Artie, would love your opinion too on just the differences that you see, because I see, whether I'm right or wrong, but I see you coming at this more of a training angle, right? And then Justin is more of kind of this coaching angle. So what do you see are kind of the main differences between training and coaching in your day-to-day?
Yeah, you and Justin really both hit the nail on the head. So the way that we look at it here is I don't look at myself as necessarily a sales coach, definitely more of a trainer. And I think the difference is from enablement and where that can be supported is I think enablement is supporting at a higher level and more at scale. So that starts with employee onboarding and making sure that they have an awesome onboarding experience where they're going through all of the fundamentals. And so we have a 2-week sales onboarding program here at PebblePost. And the way that worked is our head of sales said, Artie, and tapped enablement and said, I need you to kind of build out this program. You could work with the sales team, but this is really an enablement-owned operation. And that made a lot of sense. Now, once sales reps go through the onboarding program, they're not totally done with training. Of course, training's always there, but it does become more of a one-on-one coaching type of environment with that sales sales rep, their manager, their peers, to coach them, get them up to speed, maybe sit on a customer call and provide feedback. So it definitely becomes much more personalized. But then, as product releases come out and maybe new white papers, there's more opportunities for broader training. But I think there's a clear-cut difference between what the manager is coaching on as a sales manager and where you could really lean on your enablement partners to support you at a more wider level.
I love that. That's awesome. I often kind of oversimplify it or try and oversimplify it when I personally trying to find it. And I look at it, it's like training is this high level strategic, and then coaching is hyper tactical. Like, is there something that I can apply tomorrow? That's cool. So I'm glad we're all on the same page as we go through this conversation. And before we go further, I do want to do a super quick poll because I find it is really helpful, help us frame the conversation. And this one's going to be super simple. So what best describes your role? Is it going to be sales? Is it going to be marketing? Or is it going to be ops and enablement? We are on Sales Hacker, so we're going to be heavily skewed to the sales audience, but I'm curious to see how many kind of ops enablement folks we have here, because if we have good representation, we will spend a little more time in kind of the training section, and we'll give 15 more seconds for everyone to fill that out. And yeah, just so everyone knows, some of the cool things we're going to be tackling today is this idea of the best reps don't always make the best managers. That's a common phrase. We're going to talk through that and see if that is true. Talk a little bit about outside coaching, mentors, how you can get them, some hyper-tactical tips for sales leaders, some hyper-tactical tips for reps about sales coaching, among some other things. But let's go ahead and close that poll. Let's see these results. Cool. So pretty much as expected, I would say. Sales 82%, marketing 4%, and healthy representation, ops enablement 14%, which is pretty good because in the world there's just way less ops and enablement people. So that's cool to see. Okay, so we defined it. Let's kind of what's the reason we're talking about this? And Artie, I'll start with you. I think you only discuss things when things aren't maybe going so well. So what's broken in sales coaching today in your eyes?
Yeah, totally. So that's right. Like typically things come to us when things need to be done at a higher level. Sales coaching and bringing to sales enablement, it's interesting because generally what we look for when something's broken is like the trends. So if we see that there's one area of opportunity that they're seeing from a coaching perspective that's just not working, enablement's job is to say, okay, maybe we need to roll out something at a more broader level and train. So what we try to look for is not specific use cases, because if enablement is just chasing down every single opportunity, it's not going to be a very scalable approach, especially with large sales teams. So we try to look for the trends, and if we're seeing a lot of things are broken in one area, roll out something that's a little bit more broad. So it could be a PebblePost Academy widespread training. It could be a lunch and learn on a specific topic that's more broad. But definitely, a good sales manager and leader that we have here will say, Artie, I'm seeing a lot of different trends with something. There's an opportunity here. They'll bubble that up and we'll kind of disperse.
Yeah, those are all excellent points. And it's funny, I think the question itself, how it's phrased, is almost a problem in itself. I think a lot of times broken in sales coaching is we wait until something is broken to coach, coach against it, which is a fundamental flaw in my eyes. Justin, would love your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think a real problem is that managers and coaches are busier today than they've ever been. So there's all types of technology. Management ratios are getting really big. So you might have 8, 9, 10, 12 reps on your team, and you get really busy. Meetings, tech, team, board meet, everything. Everyone's just super busy. And what happens when people get busy is they start focusing on inputs versus outcomes. This is what I generally see when folks get really busy. So what I mean by that is, I'm Justin, I'm coaching my team. I'm super busy today. So I find 15 minutes with one rep and I give them one piece of advice. Okay. And now I'm scrambling. I'm running to the next desk. Now I'm with another rep. I'm handling an objection with a customer. Great. I just helped them make a sale. On to the next one. And it becomes all about inputs, where at the end of the day, if you look back and you say, did I coach today? You can technically say, yeah, I coached a little bit here and there, versus outcomes. And outcomes to me are what happens when you coach someone long-term. So today, the biggest thing that's broken is that managers are moving fast and they're super busy. So they need to sort of get out of the day-to-day, the week-to-week noise and say, what are the outcomes of coaching Scott this week, this month, this quarter, or for the next 12 months, and really create a long-term plan so that you can develop people, not help them solve short-term problems in their day-to-day. To me, that's where coaching is just mistargeted.
I like that line of thinking. So instead of saying, hey, I'm going to spend 20 minutes with Scott this week, you look at the outcome and be like, hey, if I spend 20 minutes with Scott this week, I want him to be able to handle these 3 objections flawlessly and focus on that.
Yeah, I think it's more like, hey, I'm Scott and I've got a customer on the line. Can someone help me? And the manager runs over, hey, blah, 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 your help. Right. That's quote unquote coaching. Yeah. Instead, it's like, okay, what have I observed in Scott's behavior and performance that needs to be coached long-term? How do I want Scott to behave and produce and perform 12 months from now? Not tomorrow, not next week. How do I truly develop this person over the long term? Because that's what a great coach does. And that's also what great reps are looking for. They're not looking for one-on-one objection handling. They're looking for growth and leadership.
Yeah. I like it. So just to not let the kind of individual contributors off the hook, I am seeing a trend that I think is broken in sales coaching. So it's not just on managers. It's not just on your director or whoever to give the coaching to do so. I think an issue we're seeing too is people actually have the willingness to apply the learning. I don't know if it's a generalization, but the generation of which I'm a part of and is growing on, everyone says they want to learn, but there's nothing more frustrating. And Artie, I'm sure you can attest to this. If you put on an hour-long training and it takes you probably 8 hours, 12 hours to put together, and you realize that no one is applying it, well, how likely are you to want to go out quickly and do another one of those, right? You feel like it's a pretty big knife in the back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. You're right. And for us, we try to use every possible tactic to get people to sit. So whether it be a game like what we talked about before with a trophy, which is bragging rights for a whole quarter, you'd be surprised how far a $25 or $5 coffee gift card can go to kind of get butts in seats and consume knowledge. But yes, it's always a challenge, no matter where you are, to get that, because it all sounds great in theory, but then having to attend for an hour is an ask, right? And then the other thing that we try to do is whenever we roll out something that's long form is short form content too. So bite-sized, a 5-minute video recap on a 1-hour course, like key takeaways. Like if you remember nothing else, here's these things. So, but it's a challenge for sure. And to answer your question, it is frustrating when the attendance isn't there. So you kind of have to use every tactic in the book, whether it be incentives or to get people there, especially when the topic's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on, because this is a very common question I get, and I've gotten it many times in webinars. And unfortunately, I think that I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway because we'll probably get it very soon. Justin, how often should I be coaching my reps as a manager?
Every day. Every single day you should be coaching your reps. I can't imagine. Let's take an example, and I'll use sports again because it's easy and cliche. Could you imagine someone asking, the coach of any basketball or football team, how often do you coach your team? He would say, I coach them every day, right? And that's the whole every second, right? That's the whole purpose of coaches. And I guess what I would say is, what are the alternatives besides the things that you're forced into? Going to meetings, like installing technology, doing cross-functional stuff, that stuff is always going to happen. But in between that, the biggest and easiest way to impact your outcomes and performance as a manager of teams is to make all your players better. And the best way to make your players better is through hands-on coaching. And so if you stitch that all together, it becomes, for me, a pretty easy answer.
Yeah, I agree. I think the title sales manager does a disservice to what the job is. Manage, to me, sounds like you're managing processes. It should be sales coach. That sounds like you're coaching people. Artie, what are your thoughts on this? How often do you think managers should be coaching their reps?
All the time too, every day. And from my side, the training's a little bit different because you shouldn't have to train every day, right? So like training as a whole, you've got the fundamentals, and then there's going to be things, but then it's skill building and coaching, and that's happening like all the time. I mean, I would say that the key role of our sales managers, directors, leaders, they're just constantly kind of coaching and coaching for scale as well. So, which is good because it kind of piggybacked off of what Justin said. And I was like, great, I think we've got that right, where they're not focusing on, the little issues here, but focusing on kind of a grander play. And of course there's little things that come up, but all the time.
Yeah. I would 100% agree. And I saw a really tactical way. I think it was Morgan Ingram on LinkedIn says he sees managers that have something, or he used to when he was a sales development leader, have Batman hour, he called it, where he would just go around the office and kind of go rogue. And that was his time to coach. And no matter what, he would have that in. I don't know if there's other ways to kind of make yourself remember that you got to be out there at coaching, but I thought that was a pretty good one. So Artie, I've got a question for you. We got a lot of sales here. I didn't break it into individual contributor and manager, but I imagine this topic lends itself to a lot of managers. And they have a lot on their plate, coaching every day, meetings, managing up. When should a sales manager rely on their enablement partner, someone like you, for that knowledge transfer?
All the time, because and we want that. Like I want that, I want to sit with managers, and we do here on a weekly basis, and just sit through, okay, what are the needs? What are the training needs? What are the collateral needs? And your enablement partner wants to do that with you as a sales manager. And even I have several people who are just sales reps who love to work with enablement, and kind of have this committee built out where we all kind of sit, and I welcome anybody to join that. We're hungry to help and to aid, and specifically where that should happen, it's when things bubble up to a higher level. So if we need new holiday white paper, that's when you want to rely on enablement to kind of help run the charge. But if it's just about hey, Mr. Jason just needs help there, I probably can't help too much there. Like, that's more one-on-one. But as things become more of a grander vision, like, hey, already people don't understand this about the product, or we have this need, and we're hungry for it. So any enablement person is hungry for that level of interaction, because life happens, and sales managers and individual contributors get really busy, but we're hungry for it, and we're hungry to help. Truly, I mean, really, we are, because a lot of the times, sales managers will, just get busy, and kind of, life happens on the floor, right, in a sales team. So we're hungry for that when we can help at a grander level. I think I've always seen that.
Yeah, that's great. And then Justin, my question to you from a sales leader's perspective: what number higher is your sales enablement person? When do you go and find yourselves an Artie typically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's probably, dependent on a case-by-case basis for your organization. But for me, I can tell you this. I brought in an enablement person in, I want to say early 2018, maybe late 2017. That was probably a year and a half too late. I'd say once one single manager can't spend a time in the classroom to get your team trained, it's probably time to look on an enablement partner. And if I could maybe put that into a stage or a time in your company, I would say once you have 10 reps, I might, if I could do this all over again, especially at PatientPop, I know enablement would have been something I did much sooner. And I heard Artie say, every day coming to enablement, and I think that makes sense. I think one big confusion is the reluctance to go to enablement because you don't understand what they do. Like that's what I see sometimes from my sales team is like, when do I go to Artie? Can you help me understand that? Or when do I go to my manager or Artie? Like, how does that work? So I think from a corporate perspective, it's really important that you define the expectations of each role. This is what Artie's team does here. This is what sales managers are responsible for here. And, I've generally seen it in 3 buckets, and there's plenty more buckets outside of these, but it's like Artie's team. And when I work with them hand in hand, it's like laying the fundamentals, making sure from a strategy perspective, we've got all the fundamentals taken care of. Advanced coaching, so downstream stuff, but making sure that it's scalable at a high level. I see so many orgs that were like, hey, Dan's pretty good at selling this one product, so let's get Dan into a room. And Dan's like, yeah, but I'm way different than everybody else here. Artie's team should make that a consistent, cohesive message that everybody can use. And then I think it's supporting like new go-to-market and new product launches. Having a good go-to-market with your enablement team is so crucial. And that's something we got really good at over time at PatientPop. When something got launched, they laid all the high-level fundamental basics, and then we coached to it at a tactical level. So those are the areas that I see the teams working really well together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'd say that I definitely agree with the confusion. It was something that we had to make sure that we defined here, because I would have managers coming up to me and say, hey, I just want to teach on this. Do I need to have you teach it? And I'm like, hey, no, have your sales meetings. Like there's always going to be learning opportunities. If you think it's a grander opportunity, invite me to the room and have me just sit in the corner and understand. And then I'll say, okay, cool, this is good. Or, hey, this is like a bigger picture thing that we need to roll out. So I always say, if you think that there's like, always train, like I'm never going to stop you from training and doing that. But if you think it's a grander opportunity, give me a seat to the table and let's see how we can make it better. Maybe we roll out a program around it, an incentive, if it's this grander opportunity. So I like to be, invited to those, but also have them understand that they can still teach, there's still teaching opportunities and what the difference is. And enablement should be more strategic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great takeaway for that 14% that were ops and enablement.
Yes.
Write yourself a definition and go hand it to your sales manager. Like, here's exactly when you should use me. And I think that will be super helpful. All right, so I want to go quickly to our community because we got some excellent questions. Some of them don't really pertain to the topic, so we'll get those at the Q&A. But here's a good one. This is from Laura Guerra. Actually know her quite well. What's up, Laura? And this is for Justin. She's putting you on the spot, man. What is a real life example of a challenge one of your reps had at PatientPop and how the manager effectively coached through that situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hello, Laura. Could have prepped me for this last night. We had dinner. Christ. So I think like a good example of that would be attach rates. So let me give you a quick example. So at PatientPop, we sold a license like most SaaS businesses. And on top of that license, there are ancillary products. A couple of folks on the team could not sell those ancillary products. They just couldn't position them effectively. They made the sale twice as expensive, and they lacked the confidence in doing so. And because of that, they couldn't achieve their quotas. So rather than like having our manager, I think Jess was the manager at the time, run by and say, you know what, when you need to position that, I'm going to jump on the phone and help you slam the deal through. That's like that short-term ad hoc thought process, which it doesn't make reps better. What we did was we actually turned it back to the enablement team. So we had Marielle and Kelso, our enablement manager, put together essentially a high-level strategic plan for attaching our ancillary services for our reps. And we enrolled all the reps into that program. We got them trained up over the course of, I think, like 3 or 4 different webinars. And then Jess created a specific coaching program with those reps to teach them how to look for opportunities, how to attach the product, how to add value when pitching the product, and then ultimately how to position the pricing on the back end. So this is where, to me, coaching becomes really specific, right? Everyone's like, coach someone to be better, but be better at what? What specifically are you going to work on, and how long are you going to work on it? 2 mistakes I see managers making: not focusing on that one thing for a long period of time so that they get better over time and you get the outcomes you want, and trying to focus on too many things at one time. Hey, we're going to get you better at attaching products and selling more deals and getting through the gatekeeper and making more cold calls. And it's like, hold on, I'm a human being. I can only do one thing better at a time. So that's a kind of a real life example that was recently within the last few quarters at PatientPop.
That's a great example. And on the spot, you whipped that out. I'm impressed. Artie, I'm gonna do the same question to you. What is one challenge, and I'm sure there's many that you have kind of helped the reps overcome?
Yeah, absolutely. So here at PebblePost, we have kind of invented this whole new digital to direct mail product and channel here. So we've went through a lot of different changes as a product. And with that, we've had to train in a lot of different ways. So we built out kind of, everyone learns and gets trained up in a different way. So we had to really accommodate and make sure that we're touching on ways that everybody will like to learn and consume, which was interesting, which is where like things like games come from. So some people really like live in-person interactivity. We also built out PebblePost Academy with the help of Showpad Coach to have on demand, because some people like to just go home and watch by the fireplace and get trained up. I literally have pictures that the reps send me of them on a beach, like watching PebblePost Academy. In-person lunch and learns, because some people learn better in person, some people just want free lunch, and that's the incentive. So we've had a lot of opportunities for learning around just building this whole new channel here at PebblePost. And it's just a lot of learning and training knowledge. And I think just building out different systems to make sure that understanding reps learn in different ways, and giving everybody a way that they can learn. So a lot of different options.
That's a great point on, everyone consumes their content material differently. You look in real life, people like podcasts, people like Netflix, people like, reading books, whatever it may be, and you got to serve that up to them. It's a great point. Well, Laura, thank you for the question. Laura Guerra is a badass director of sales over at eClub. I'm sure she's hiring. Go find her on LinkedIn. So this one is going to be an interesting question. I'm really excited for this one. And we're going to approach this from two different lenses. So let's say I'm a rep, I'm an individual contributor, and I'm not getting coaching. How can I encourage my manager to coach me? Which in my eyes, is how can I become more coachable? And we'll start internally, like how can I get my manager to buy into me? And then we'll talk about externally with like mentors and things like that. So Justin, let's start with you. How can I encourage my internal manager to maybe coach me more or lean into me?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be vocal, right? I think, what is it? Squeaky wheel gets the oil, I think is the old saying. But I can recall back in 2009 when I was an individual contributor at ZocDoc and going through like a week where I just couldn't set any demos, and I sucked for like a whole week. I was just I was not able to do anything. And I remember calling my manager, and there was no Zoom back then. There was no jump on Slack. And I called my manager in New York and said, I need you to get on a plane and I need you to come fly out here and spend at least 3 days with me because I'm in a super huge funk. And he got on the plane and did that. But that's my responsibility. Yeah. And for me, yes, I know everyone wants the world to be perfectly fair, but humans are humans. I know Dan gets 30 more minutes of coaching than you do every week, but people aren't perfect, and people don't plan their days and weeks perfectly to coach everyone with the exact same cadence and rhythm. So if you want more coaching, it's on you to raise your hand. And if you want people to accept it and say I can't wait to coach Liz or Jen, then you better be coachable, right? And I think part of the coachability is absorption and application. Do you absorb what is being coached, and do you actively attempt to apply it? And if after 5 or 10 or 15 coaching sessions, you're not absorbing anything and you're also not attempting to apply it, it's okay, next time you raise your hand and ask for 30 minutes, I already know what the end result is. And it becomes more challenging for me or for a manager as a leader to say, that's a good spend of my time. So maybe not the answer that folks are hoping to hear, but it's on you. Raise that hand.
Yeah. It's so true. And I know a large portion of my learning came from just hounding my managers, people around me for information, and then the application of that knowledge. I can't stress how important that is. And one way you can do that is go up 2 weeks later and be like, Justin, thank you so much, man. That thing that you told me, I specifically did it here, and this helped me get X. How cool is that? And then Justin's like, wow, that was worth my time.
Totally.
Which is huge. I look at it, someone explained it to me this way, or maybe I made it up, I don't know. But if I ask Justin, I'm like, hey dude, can I borrow your car? And Justin's like, sure, man, like I'll give you my car. And so he transfers this car, and it's like a transfer of knowledge. And then he drives by my house every day, and it's just sitting there, and it's doing nothing. I'm not using it, I'm not doing anything with it. And then I come to Justin again, I'm like, hey dude, can I borrow your other car? He's going to be like, well, what do you mean, man? Like, you didn't even use the other one. Why do you need this one? Like, and it's this idea that people want to be useful, and they want their transfer of knowledge, them to see it applied in real life, or they're not just going to keep giving. Artie, jump in.
Yeah, and to pile on to that, in a past life as a sales manager, it was always there was always a handful of reps who would always every day kind of have questions, and for me they were always the top performers. Always. It's like the ones who are kind of the most persistent and have the most questions. It's like I've never not wanted to help when there were questions, because I know that's gonna be a great use of everyone's time. So I think ask the questions, and it was always the ones who were persistent and on top of me every day with new questions, new ideas, and getting me on the phone or getting me in person to an office. It's like I never minded that. So don't be afraid of it, because it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in there, like I wrote something about this maybe a few months back, which is like, especially with like a lot of the folks coming in from school and landing their first job in tech, like you get a training class together and you can see it, right? You've got the guy or gal in the back who's raising their hand. They were the kid in class who like wanted to answer every question. And then you got like Johnny Cool Guy in the front, like, slouched over, twiddling his pencil and not participating. Like, this isn't school. Like that cool guy is not cool anymore. Like, it's not cool to be not to give a crap when you get into work. It's cool to raise your hand and ask a lot of questions, and you're going to find that in your career, like, people start admiring you for being the person in school that annoyed everyone, but in training class was the most eager. I think that's like sort of a flip as you come out of school and into your first career. You got to be eager, and you got to be open. You can't be a Johnny Cool Guy anymore.
Awesome analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be Johnny Cool Guy.
I couldn't think of a cooler name than that, so I went with it.
It's a whole webinar, actually.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, because you're actually the bravest one when you're putting your hand up.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's secretly thinking it, and you're the leader who's actually going to go
and the manager's really thinking it, that you're cool.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk. That's how you kind of attract. So that was just rigid application, showing them that you're bought into the advice they give, asking for it frequently. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes people have big aspirations for their career, and they're getting a certain amount of coaching, and they're like, okay, like I can't ask Artie for more coaching. He's giving me so much, but I still have this like ferocious appetite to learn. And maybe you look outside your organization. There's someone you see, you're like, wow, that guy or gal is on to something. I would love to have some of their knowledge. How can I attract mentors into my life who are going to help me get to the next level? Artie, I'll start with you there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just speak up, ask, and say that that's something that we're interested in. We do it here all the time. We do something called fireside chats, and we bring in industry experts, leaders. Sometimes we even bring in our customers and our brands that we work with. But we bring them in and we get everybody together, and we just encourage a really open dialogue with questions. So I think that came about actually from a sales director at the time who said, Artie, it would be great if you can help source people to come in on a regular basis. And I think our cadence is around once a month. a little bit less, where they come in and they kind of just speak, and it could be a CMO, it could be another head of sales, and kind of just really ask direct questions. But it just comes from asking your enablement partner or where that fits in your organization. Hey, could we do something like this? And me as an enablement person, I was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I proactively? Like, yes, absolutely. And it became this cultural fireside chat thing that we did that really became popular. So speak up, ask, and marketing or enablement will probably grant that.
That's cool. So almost, I think that's a great piece of advice of using the power of your organization to go after some of these people. And it might be more likely that if, LinkedIn, the organization, reaches out to Justin and says, hey, can we steal you for a lunch and learn, versus Bobby Cool Guy that works at LinkedIn asking for, an hour of Justin's time. I think that's a really good idea.
I think so. Unless there's a personal connection, I think, bubble it up. And I think that it would be well received anywhere.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So, and just to preface this, so Justin, how often are you getting hit up by people saying, hey, I want 15 minutes on your calendar just to chat?
I probably get 30 to 40 outreaches every day for people asking for 15 to 30 minutes of time.
Yeah. So we have to approach that. And Artie, how many you built this amazing community? I'm sure Ops enabling people reach out to you fairly frequently as well.
Yeah, all the time. Or our advisors will say, hey, could you just help this person over here? All the time. Happy to. Definitely a difference in like a quick connect on what's going on versus like having to build out someone else's strategy. So as long as it's like, I have a full-time job over here. So as long as it's like respectful, and I'm always, happy to.
Yeah. Cool. And I know personally I get hit up quite a bit. So Justin, how can I, if I want to get your attention, how do I show you that I'm serious and worthy of your time and stand out against 40 other people vying for the same thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are generally let me say three things about this topic very, very quickly that I think are important. One is the easiest way to find a group of mentors is to find someone who's a peer to you in maybe another organization. So as I was coming up in ZocDoc, I had a couple of buddies. Some worked there, some worked at different organizations, but we were all sales reps. And like, what did that create? It's like, I was in my late 20s, you go out, have some beers, you go back to everyone's house, and like you get in an argument till 2 a.m. about how to best handle rejection. Like it's really kind of dorky, but like you've been there. I've been there, right? Where you're yelling at each other over like a Coors Light as you're like trying to figure out how to handle a non-decision maker objection. Like that's a fun way to do it when you're like, as you're coming up in the game, like get that really tight knit group of people, because like that's what stands out is folks who kind of live their career and they do it outside of work as well. So that's one really unique and interesting way you can do it at no cost. The other way is like, go through a channel that's really, really specific. So I belong to a group. I know, Scott, you're a part of it as well, the Revenue Collective. So a lot of times I'll get a connection through that group. And for those folks, I jump on the call with those guys, like no worries. Like we're connected through different people. We get an introduction made. But for those 30 to 40 people that reach out every day, and it's not the answer that everyone wants to hear, but like if I said yes to all of them, I would be spending 80 hours a week just doing calls. And so the way that I do that to try and find people who are where I want to be is I pay them. And I have an executive coach. So I make an investment every month into the future of my career. And it comes back multiple times over. And so even if you're coming up and you don't have a lot of extra income, like set aside even $50 or $100 a month or a quarter and go find someone that you really want and play in their content, send them a book, book, join a group that they're a part of, make a connection through LinkedIn, do something. And I was just talking with Scott Leese earlier today, and I know you were in Costa Rica with him. And like, he's even said, like, a couple guys have come to me and been like, I've got $50, like, what can you do for me? And, you know, he's helpful. And I know that's like not a fun answer to give everyone, but the truth is I do it. I pay for my executive coach because I want her knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Those are great tips. Look to peers. Says a lot of those peers are going to go on to do amazing things. Look for communities, Revenue Collective, Sales Hacker, MSP. There's a million of them, because then you're already tied together. And then you got to spend money to make money. I believe that is so true on so many different levels. So that's awesome advice. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. I got like 2 more questions I want to ask, and then we'll go to the community because we have a ton of questions. We might have to get you guys back for part 2 here. Okay, so let's go super hyper tactical. So what are 3 hyper tactical tips that you would give to sales leaders about sales coaching? If you could only give them 3, what are they going to be? And Justin, I'll start with you. And then Artie, I'll go with you of like, if they could listen to everything you had to say, what would those be?
Yeah, I think I'll give you this sort of tactical tips. Number 1, have a repeatable framework for how you define your overarching coaching strategy. Like, what is your cadence? What is your process? How do you coach as an org? That's step 1, define that. When you get down into the tactical, it's like, all right, how do you bucket reps in your org? Like, for me, mine was always easy. SMB SaaS, like 8-day sales cycle. I made an axis across. One was access, ACCESS, and one was closing. Access, closing. I plotted all my reps at where they were. We figured out where they needed work. Maybe it was prospecting, maybe it was just closing, and we put them in a bucket. That's like step 2. Step 3 is select one improvement at a time. So put a stake in the ground on that improvement and go for it. And then step 4 is agree to the measured behaviors that you're going to be measuring over the course of time. So if you agree that prospecting is what you're going to work on, the behaviors you're going to measure are talk time, DM connects, conversions into SQLs. So those are my steps. Have a framework, bucket reps, select one improvement at a time, and agree to the measured behaviors.
I like those a lot. One that sticks out to me that I don't think when I was managing I did good enough at was one improvement at a time. When we look at A/B testing, marketing activities, whatever they are, we all know that, but I don't think that ever clued in. So that's a good one. Artie, if you could speak directly to your sales leader and give them 3 hyper tactical tips, what would those be?
Absolutely. Probably one, lead by example. So when it comes to training and enablement, get involved in training and enablement, even if it's just for the reps, but it's a rep-wide training. Attend, show them that you care about training and learning just as much. Even if the sales leader is not the one on the sales calls every day, just really show that you're invested and that you care. 2, as it relates to training, probably incentivize. That doesn't need to be anything crazy where you're going to get a Disney World vacation approved for some big incentive, but just a little bit of incentive really goes a long way. And then also just getting really involved with enablement and having a really awesome partnership. It should never be a chase thing where sales is chasing enablement or enablement's chasing sales. There should be weekly meetings and there should be really close alignment so that everything that is being produced together as a team is super awesome, super relevant. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's hands are stacked on it. And it's awesome. There's no surprises. So I would say those 3 probably.
Yeah, no, those are great. And the first one kind of stuck out to me is you got to lead by example. You got to show that you're a voracious learner too, right? Justin's got his coach. You don't stop learning ever, right. And you got to show people that so that you don't hit this point where you're kind of top reps are like, yeah, they might need coaching. I'm good.
Absolutely, and sometimes that starts that begins even above a sales leader. That could come from executive leadership of a company infusing training culture into an organization. I mean, that's our C-suite here is like, they're like training crazy about constant learning and training, which is why they support me doing so many company-wide things. That starts even at the top. It could be CEO level. I mean, really, executive sponsorship and training and learning is that's a whole topic probably, but it's huge.
No doubt, for sure. And yeah, if you're part of an organization, like it sounds like PebblePost is, going back to spend money to make money, you might actually be able to pull from a learning and education budget, which like a lot of organizations have. Okay, last question I want to sneak in because I'm curious to hear the perception. I have my views on it. I don't know if they're set in stone. I see a good argument for both, but how many times do we hear the best reps don't always make the best managers? And everyone says that. And then there's just like a ... behind it. And not like, hey, how do we maybe turn the best reps into the best managers or anything along those lines? It's just like, it's some esoteric truth that has permeated the sales team, the sales culture. Justin, what is your views on that statement?
Yeah, I think if the statement was the best reps never make good managers, I would say that's false, right? I think I've seen plenty of good reps become great managers. To say that the best reps don't always become good managers is definitely true. It's interesting. I see so many reps and they're like, I'm killing it. I'm beating quota. Now I want to be a manager. And it's like closing deals, leading groups of people. They are literally not related in any way. They are two distinctly different skill sets. So to the extent that you think you're just going to walk in from closing deals to managing people and do an excellent job at it day one, I have plenty of managers from my previous company that would tell you they made that mistake of having that assumption when they walked in and became immediately overwhelmed. So what I always recommend is prepare to be a great manager the same way that you became a great salesperson. Find a mentor, engage in books, read blogs, listen to podcasts, because I know folks that tell me they want to skip leadership entirely in terms of managing people and become a VP. And I've watched it happen. I've watched 3 people I know say like, I'm going from individual contributor to building the sales team for the next company. 3 epic failures. So don't do that. If you want to grow in your career, go be a sales manager and then manage managers. The experience that you pick up will be infinitely more valuable than trying to skip ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. And so the thing that bothers me about the statement is I think a lot of the best reps in at least the modern age of selling have figured out kind of what we were talking about earlier is they're lifelong learners and they're hungry to learn. So what I do like about that is if they put that willingness into learning this new skill and not thinking that, hey, I know this, so that means by default I'll be good at this, by using that same kind of hunger and applying it to how they manage people can set them up for success. And another point I'll add there, and then Artie, I'd love your perspective on this, is I was always told, and it what I did my whole career was you don't get promoted until you're already doing the job that you want the promotion for. So you want to manage people, go manage people, go be a leader. Like you don't have to be like an authoritative manager, but you can help out. Like there's a few things that everyone can do. Everyone can help with onboarding. Everyone can help with recruitment. Everyone can help with morale. Everyone can do what Artie's doing and building out these things that bring the whole company together. Those are things that leaders do. And if you're doing those, then honestly, it's like there's never a discussion. It kind of just happens. You probably won't have to ask for it. Artie, would love your opinion there too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with everything. So I'll keep it pretty short because I have a lot of same viewpoints. But I think there is a general, sometimes misconception that as you become a manager, it just means that you're going to now just kind of inherit all your team's deals. And now you're just working on more deals at a higher level. And that just couldn't be any more not what it is, So it's like you've got maybe 10 deals that you're working on as an individual contributor. You're now going to manage 10 people. So now you have 100 deals and you get to kind of it's not like that. You're not chasing shiny objects as a great sales manager. You are doing all the things that Justin has been talking about with coaching. And as Justin said, they're really different from each other. Independent contributor and a coach, they're totally different. Now, you can have both of those skill sets or grow into those skill sets, but it's not just inheriting more shiny objects and deals and just doing more of the same. It's really different. Obviously, some synergy, but really different.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you want to prepare yourself for specifically BD or sales leadership. Throw the sales book out and pick up some books on how to become a good therapist or a psychologist, because a shocking amount of your time will be spent in that arena, as I'm sure you both know. Okay, let's take some questions. We got a ton. And if we don't get to all of them, connect with these two on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll get a ton of answers just from content they post. Okay, so this one, this is an interesting one. My company is new to this coaching idea. Currently, I'm an IC individual contributor, but I'm also a coach for 5 other individual contributors. Is this dual role typical, better yet sustainable? So do you believe in the player-coach model is what I'm hearing out of that question. Artie, let's start with you.
Yes. And I think that's probably, to your point, that's probably how you become a manager. That's doing almost a more elevated role. If you're coaching 5 other people, but you're an individual contributor, that's probably how that happens, right? So I would hope that something like that would be in the future. But yeah, I think that's awesome. Is it typical? I think it just depends on the organization. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I think it's doable, but not sustainable. And I think it's only sustainable if there are some real boundaries around it. So we used team leads at my last business, but it wasn't like you were the manager and the individual contributor. You were a team lead. So you took 2 people who had been onboarded recently, you helped them get ramped up. So there was quasi management and leadership, but your core function was to hit your target. So I think it's good to expose people to management and leadership, much like you just said. Let's do it early before we throw them into a full role. But in my opinion, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been in that position. I've been a team lead, player coach. It is incredibly exhausting. I did it for about, I think, a full year. By the end of it, I was kind of losing my mind. So I would agree with you.
I think the formal change has to come. That's the only thing. I think you can start there, and as long as I just think it's not long term, right? So as long as there's a line in the sand, that's to come. Yeah.
You have to remember that you're asking someone to do 2 roles, and they're doing it because you dangled the carrot. So if the carrot never comes, they're eventually going to be like, well, what am I doing? All right, one more question, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, and we'll make it quick. What is your view on people having innate sales ability versus being taught? Is there such thing as just innate salespeople? With this in mind, do you think there's a time frame over which extensive coaching for particular individuals should end and they be let go? Interesting. Artie, if you don't have any sort of kind of skills in the sales arena, when do you say, hey, I think enough is enough?
Yeah. I think the individual contributor who's maybe getting started in a sales career, I think that they will figure out pretty quickly if they want to do it or not. But I also think that as sales teams, and especially in tech, are growing, there's a lot of roles in a sales organization. So yeah, maybe you're not a cold caller, but maybe you're an awesome account manager, or maybe you are an awesome SDR team leader. Or maybe you're awesome at enablement. I've never been a cold caller, so for me, I can't, but I do think that I do enablement well. So, there's a lot of different roles. So sales, if you're interested in that, it might not just be one-dimensional. There's a lot of different things you can do in the organization if you're excited about being part of a revenue-generating team. Now more than ever, there's a lot of roles.
I love it. And Justin, one final sentence thought from you, and then we'll wrap this up.
There will always be people who are born playing the piano, right? They come out and they're like, hey, look, I can play the piano. It's amazing. And I think you'll get some of those folks in sales, right, that are just like, hey, I figured it out and my personality works, but that's like 2%. I think mostly Richard Harris once said, I know you know Richard, sales is a science, not an art, and I agree with that. It's like taking batting practice. The more swings you get, the better you are at it. I think there are some things inside of people's personalities that make them more likely to be successful, but I think ultimately sales is a science, and if you work really hard at it, I think today you can be really excellent at it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, we will wrap up there. Last thing, for everyone who joined us, thank you so much. Because you guys hung out with us, we're actually going to send you a really cool resource. It's the critical role of the frontline sales manager. Showpad's surveyed over 500 sales managers around the globe to understand their challenges. So we're going to send that out to everyone who registered for this. So keep an eye out. Justin, Artie, thank you guys so much. You two are a wealth of knowledge, and I hope to have you both back very soon.